Hello and welcome. Today we've got a few things to talk about. Eddie is guarding the windows, guarding the neighborhood, so we've got him on watch. But I wanted to walk through today how we've transitioned from the old character model, the old game design that we had, which was the clickable space, the clickable areas, to the new model that we have with a walkable character, including some animations, some interactions with the world, and also how we took that toggle animation and logic and how we're integrating it into this kind of new interactive environment. So, with that, let's get going. So, we have Godot here, which is our just game engine that we're working with, and VS Code pulled up. So really what I just want to do first is show you the different designs. So one thing I did want to do was play around with a few different versions of the game. So firstly, we played around with the clickable version where everything was on just a screen and you went and clicked with the mouse. And that felt okay, but I wanted to play around with just animations in general. So we have our game here. And we start out now in this just corporate office. So the character can walk around, which is great. Put in a little placeholder animation there just so we get the feet moving, which is a lot of fun. Also have little barriers here so the character can't walk up into the cafe, into the sky. And that's kind of the same all the way across. And then we have some walls going on here where the character can't walk, in certain zones. And as you can see, I used my very extensive graphic design skills in GIMP to just destroy a wall here because the chat GPT background gave me just a wall and I wanted not a wall there. So all this I'm kind of treating as placeholder for now. Just kind of figuring out the mechanics, figuring out like what to do. And then once we get the mechanics and gameplay finalized, we can always go back through and do like a wash a polish to update the art or whatever. I feel like I'm noticing why a lot of game developers stick with squares and rectangles now. It didn't take me very long, a couple of weeks to learn that lesson, is because if you have art on the screen, there's a tendency to go through and redesign, clean up, and just rinse and repeat that over and over. I could easily see myself getting caught in just a circle loop of making the art better over and over and over again. And also with this animation, it's very basic right now, but I could see several iterations and months even just being spent on how this character interacts with the world, and also like how do we want it to feel in the world itself? Like, do I want them to be able to just randomly jump onto this table? Do I want gravity in the world where I have to press like a space bar or something to get them to jump up into the world? There's so many different minor details that you just take for granted when you're playing games that you're like, oh, that's right. That's how there's weight to what's going on. So we have our corporate environment here, our corporate space. Originally, I was going to put like an overworld model. That's what I talked about, I believe, in the last video, where I wanted to get like a Mario aspect going on, where you have this huge world and you're just going through and interacting with the space. But I kind of felt a little overwhelmed when I put it in the world. It was just a little too much to work together because my brain was like, oh, there's an upgrade shop and there's a coffee shop and how do you get to the office? And there was just so much complexity to all that. I was like, you know what? Let's break it down to just the office. We're going to point the character into the office and just work out the game mechanics and workflows within the office. And then once we have that all figured out, then we can expand to the world. So we have our little character. He interacts. He walks around, and I'm going to bring down the debug here so we can see what happens. The only interaction that's available currently on the screen is this daily stand-up board that's over here on the left. And oh, by the way, how I created those walls, I can go over that real quick. How we created the wall. There's my beautiful toggle button. Let's open up. Oh, let's not rename anything. um, let's open up this world. Like, so we have these different just collapsible the collision area, collision shapes, and we have just a wall area here where, let me just scrunch that in here so you can actually see it. But each one of these is its own collision shape, and I just put it in the world. So, I was duplicating stuff and creating different walls for different places, but I just put different domains and saying like the character cannot walk through that because its collision body will hit this collision domain and then it won't be able to interact with that area. So that's how I basically created the walls and everything like that and got it to where the character can't, pass through. And then I just colored them red on this screen just to remind myself of like, okay, that's where the character cannot walk and interact. And then if we can see here, there's another collision body, a collision 2D down at the left left, down at the right that says, yes, we can interact with that space. So we have the character now going through. Oop, that is full screen. That's not what we want. No, that's actually full screen. I don't know how I did that. All right, let's calm it down. Bring it over here. Okay, so now we have walkable character animations, how they interact with the world, building the walls, and then also I wanted to get some sort of the game loop going. So in this little alcove here, we have our Scrum cultists. That's what they care about. They just care about daily stand-ups. They care about the ritual aspect of work. They don't care about really getting productivity done as long as the ceremonies are done. That's kind of my like little first thing that we're going to interact with the world. So what the character model does is once he gets near the daily stand-up board, and in just real quick, in engineering and in software development, you have these things called these daily stand-ups where you go in every single day and you just say, okay, this is what I'm working on, this is what I plan to do, and then you assign things called story points. They can be like story points themselves, like a 1, 3, or a 5. They can be t-shirt sizes, like small, medium, large. And that is kind of how you organize your day. And you're like, okay, I can take 2 large tasks plus a small task. Or I can take a 5 pointer today, or I can take a 2 1 pointers and a 3 pointer today. And that's what the purpose is of the daily stand up, is just to get together in the morning, say, yep, this is what I'm working on today. This is what I'm focused on today. Is there anything that needs to change, or can I just go lock in and solve these problems and make this happen? So we have our daily stand-up board for our Scrum cultist. I'm going to put in some cheeky stuff saying like, hey, maybe the board, those sprint value points are worth higher points, but then the Scrum Master comes in, or the Scrum cultist comes in and slashes the points in half and says like, no, I think it really, only takes 1 point to do that task instead of 5, as an example. So I might do some like just comedy stuff here a little bit later, but for now we're just working on like functionality of the game. So if you walk over to this board, you can see that the collision domain hits the area of the 2D, and then it notices that in the code. And I just had little print statements here saying like, hey, are you interacting with this or not? And then if we do interact with it, I put input maps onto interaction, being like, if you press the space bar, what happens? Or if you press an E key, what happens? So what happens now is if we press the space bar, we get portaled to this other room. And so right now, if you notice those toggles, I got to change the art around on the toggles themselves. But we brought the toggle concept into this space where the character can interact with them. I haven't set up interaction yet in this scene. So I'm wondering, I got to research a little bit and see if I can just move interaction or like, no, I guess it makes sense because I have to set up collision domains for these specific buttons in this specific scene. So I still have to do that work. So if we go back over to our editor here real quick, you can see where if we go to the toggle room, there's a collision domain here on the character, but there isn't yet for the toggles. That's what I'm going to do today. I just kind of figured out the puzzle game itself last night, and I coded that up, and I put placeholder art in for the toggle switches. So now I got to go back through and be like, well, okay, I don't want to mouse click these buttons. I want the character to interact with these buttons. I'll probably leave mouse clicking available. For me, it's an easy debug just to like click click click. Does it work? Yes or no, and then move about my day. But then also I was thinking about like accessibility. It's like if you don't want to have to walk your character over and then interact, it would just be nice to like click a button and get that nice like click. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. But when the character entered the room, what we have here is I can pull up the code just to go over that real quick, and then we'll kind of play it a little bit. So what happens is the character model itself, and really it's fun because I'm using Copilot to build a lot of this stuff, and then I'm actually checking its own logic out. So I asked it as an example. I was like, hey, what does this piece do here? And Copilot is actually really good at just explaining what's in the code. So I'm having a good time still with that, but I'm still trying to like rein it in and figure out like where do I use Copilot, where do I not use Copilot. I tried to have it build the scene itself, and it gave me like that parsing error that came out in Godot. It was like, nope, you can't open the scene because it wasn't already open in the editor at least once. That was annoying. So I was just like, okay, Copilot, you stick to the code. I'll stick to the design of the game. It's fine. This is how we're going to interact for a little while. So, so firstly, what happens is it develops a solution, and it puts it just in an array, and it says like, okay, this is what your solution is, and then it prints that out. So as an example, we have here, we walked into the room. So we already know, as the developer and as the debug people, we already know that the solution is 210. And so the counting starts at 0 with arrays and indexing. So it's 0, 1, 2. So we know if we just click 2, 1, 0, like in the reverse order, that the puzzle will be solved. So what the code does is it goes through and it checks the player input on the toggles that are pressed, and then it checks it against the sequence that it just saved. And if the player enters everything correctly, it gives you like just a cheesy little victory sound, and everything resets. Now, if you don't select the correct order because the puzzle hasn't reset yet, so our solution is still 210. So if we go over here at the left and we just select this one, it gives you that game over, failed. So right now, and then it resets everything. So that's where we're at now. What I'm planning to do today is go through and, I guess the point too is, yeah, nope. I have a tendency to switch topics and just start rambling on another subject. We're trying not to do that. So we built the toggle code. We're reusing a lot of the logic around like the actual functionality. Oh, look at that. I didn't even realize if I reset, I'm gonna have to fix that. If I reset one toggle switch, it fails the puzzle. That's interesting. But so we're reusing the functionality that we built before. We're trying not to throw away a lot of code, right? We're just trying to iterate on like, okay, let's feel out this game. What do we actually want out of this game? What do we want it to feel like? That's really what we're going through, and then expanding upon the concept. So right now I have interaction with main scene. I have going through the daily stand-up board to collect like your mission that you go through. And then now we have this first mission, which is probably going to be the easiest, which is just a quick little puzzle game just to get that core loop defined. And then I can start playing around with like the power-ups station. So if we go back, I have to add a portal back to the main office today as well. But if we go back to this other scene here, like our power-ups could be over here in the cafe, right? We could have like NPCs over here just chilling, and maybe they give you boosts. boofs. Maybe they get you buffs or bonuses around like your for your runs. Maybe that's what happens here. And then thinking about what to do in this space, I'm thinking about introducing the concept of like entropy in a dead zone, perhaps over here. We're gonna see. But concept being the loop of the game now, from what I want to do, is you enter the corporate space, you grab your power ups and your bonuses, and you talk to NPCs. You go over to the daily stand up board. From there, that's your mission selector. So every sprint that runs, every iteration that runs, you're going to select a bunch of missions. You're going to complete as many as you can to gather sprint points. And then you can use those points to spend on upgrades to be able to survive for longer and longer and longer. So that's the core concept I want to kind of tighten up right now. And of course, put in more collision areas, perhaps, so that the character can't just dance on the scrum cultist. So put in some more collision areas. Tighten up where they can walk, where they can't walk, and make that more noticeable. And then also, polish up this room. So I really want to like maybe bring in a hum, bring in some sparks, bring in that concept of wiring up patches, because everything that we do within the core loop is going to be achieving an ultimate goal. So we have this ultimate goal of like powering up the productivity machine, kind of worked that out as like the goal here. So I want to just keep that concept going where we're like, okay, we're working towards the productivity machine. First step in order to do that is by wiring it up, wiring these switches. And then we're going to progress mission over mission in like different areas. And I feel like what that allows me to do within this game loop is play around with different play styles within the game. So right now, this is a puzzle game. But what if we went to that daily stand up board and then we had I don't know, platformer as an example. And then in that scene with that character model, I can get different mechanics to be able to play around with things like gravity and physics and things like that. And so I can really suss out and figure out like what feeling do I want to have with the game and like in like these safe contained areas. That's at least the concept of what I'm building. We're gonna see if that works out or not. What was also interesting and fun was figuring out persistence within the character models. So if we have we have our little debug down here again. Let me restart the game. I really gotta figure out that portal back. Oh, I just opened up that scene. So if we start the whole game over again, and then we're here. One thing I also did was persistence between the scenes. So if and this is something you just take for granted of when you play video games, right? You have a character model, you can move it around the screen, everything works within this scene. But how do you get things like your equipment, your health, your power ups, whatever you have on your character, how do you get it from one scene to the next? Well, there's this concept of like saving character states. And so, as an example, we have a script that just goes and saves the character states. So we save it in a singleton in the character, and we can look up here on the project board to see what those singletons are, which I've, getting more comfortable in the system, which I love. So we save it here in this script called, player data. And if we open it, I love it. Yeah, we're getting more comfortable. So right now, all we're doing is we're saving, a thing called health. I haven't decided if I just want to simplify the game mechanics and call everything health, and then just flavor it as morale on the art aspect, but just internally call it health, or have a separate thing of health and morale. We'll see. So if they have any inventory, we're substantiating that gold or coins or whatever it is, and then loop progression. So how many sprints, how many loops has the character done? That's what we also want to save. And then their position. So I'm testing it with position right now, and I'll explain like how that works is like, so let's say we go over here with the character, and this is how I'm like functionally debug testing it, and we save the character state, right? So now I walk way over here, And I triggered input buttons to do all of this, so that's why I can just do it on my keyboard. So now we say load instead of save. Bam. So now we just teleported over to another area of the map on a position we saved. And we can go up and do that again. So let's say we go over here in this corner. We save that position. And then we come down here and we load that position. So it just saves the position of the character wherever it is in the map. So what that means is like when you're teleporting through the daily stand-up board, where do you think we're going to end up? So currently we're right here. We're at the daily stand-up board. We entered this scene, and this is why it matters, at least to me. So we entered the scene here on corporate. So let's resave. Let's save that again. And then we're going to go over here and we're going to enter this other scene. So to me, it felt weird having the character enter here and not really exploring the space of the live wires that are all over the place. Because I want to add maybe some elements, collision domains of danger, where if you like touch a live wire, you get shocked, and I really wanted the character to enter the scene where the daily stand-up board was. That was like their starting position in my brain. And so when they didn't enter like where I wanted them to, it was a little frustrating. So instead what I'm doing is what I'm going to do is I figured out how to do persistence for now. And so let's have an example of that. We're going to come down here. We're going to save state here at like right next to the board. And then we're going to portal through. So now the character is down here where the board was. And so then they can walk up to the switches. They can explore the space. If there's anything going on here, I can really like kind of force the character through that. Not force, allow them to explore the space, really get to know the space, really. And then it just feels more natural. If you portal in somewhere, your character is at the same location on the new scene. That just felt good to me. So now when we go through and we hit portal, so what I'm going to do now is, so default, remember we were up at the corporate door. Right before we hit execute and interact, when we do the interaction, I want to save the character position and then say, okay, you're portaling to the next scene and you're going to stay in the same spot. So that was the whole point. I was playing around with that yesterday and, throwing it through, keyboard inputs, but that functionality now allows me to save state when I go from one scene to the next. And that was very good. So, okay, plan for today, filming this video. So that's going to be check on my list. I love little dopamine hits of checks. So that's done. And then I'm going to polish up this room. I'm going to make that interactivity back to the main scene exist. And then I want to probably introduce points and get, like, when you win the puzzle, you get a point. When you, if you lose the puzzle, you lose some health or you lose some morale. So if I can get those features working, let's see here. I'm going to also write that down. Health loss on puzzle loss. Okay. So if I can get all that stuff done today, we'll have a really tight game loop that I'll feel confident in, that I can start showing people around. And then some extra credit would be like some feeling to this room. So some, soft hums of the electrical wires, some danger zones. So if you touch a live wire, you get a little shock and you get a little like interaction. And then, yeah, I think that's enough, honestly, for today. And then we're going to just keep going through next week in figuring out like, okay, I like this first room. I like the concept of the loop progression. How do we progress the game and the character without getting either boring or making it feel good throughout the game? I think that's just going to be a constant concern of mine. So maybe get some mood lighting going on, some zoom in on the character. Because right now we can see everything, but what if the camera was a little tighter on the character, how does that change the feeling of the game? So that's my plan. That's my interactions. That's what's going on with me and with Eddie with the new camera setup. I really like it. And yeah, that's I think what we're gonna do for the next week or so, and then I will record another one of these. So I'll see you then.